The iron-grey waters of the ford do not flow today, they churn with the weight of 1,000 drowned souls. Standing in the center of the rushing current is a boy who is no longer a boy, but a trembling vessel of divine and monstrous fury. Across the mist, the armies of Ireland wait in a silence so thick it chokes the breath. A single warrior, his foster brother, steps into the light. Will his superhuman strength save the province of Ulster, or will the darkness rising from his marrow prove stronger? He was born Setanta, a child of the dawn and the dust of Muthemna plain. His origins were a tangled knot of the mortal and the divine, woven during a winter storm when magical birds led the nobles of Ulster to a house that existed only in the space between heartbeats. There, the Godlug Lamfada, the long-handed master of arts, planted a seed of fire in the womb of Daichteen, sister to King Conchobar. Setanta was a creature of duality from his first breath, a prince of the Red Branch by blood, and a weapon of the Tuatha Dé Danann by destiny. He grew with a speed that defied the seasons, his limbs hardening like seasoned oak, and his eyes possessing a clarity that saw through the veils of the world. He was fostered by the greatest minds of the North. Censure the Wise taught him eloquence, and Fergus MacRoich taught him the weight of the sword. At the age of 5, armed only with a wooden hurley and a bronze-shod ball, he set out to claim his place among the boy troop of Emain Macha. When the troop attacked him in a swarm of jealousy, the first spark of the battle frenzy flickered in his veins. He beat them back single-handedly, a whirlwind of violence that left the field littered with the bruised and broken. King Conchobar looked upon the child and saw a destiny carved in stone. The transition to Cú Chulainn was forged at the house of Culann the smith. Culann's guard dog, a beast so fierce it took 3 chains to hold it, was unleashed to guard the gates. Setanta arrived late and slew the Hound of Hell with his bare hands. "I will be your hound," the boy told the grieving smith. "I will guard your house until a pup is grown." Thus, he became Cú Chulainn, the Hound of Culann. When the boy was 7, he overheard the druid Cathbad speaking in the sacred groves. "He who takes arms on this day," the druid whispered, "shall have fame that outlasts the stars, but his life shall be as short as a winter's day." Cú Chulainn did not hesitate. He shattered every spear and shield offered to him until only the king's own gear could withstand his grip. He chose the path of the hero, knowing the cost. Queen Medb of Connacht, seeking to match the wealth of her husband, set her sights on the Don Quelling, the great brown bull of Ulster. When negotiations failed, she raised the 4 provinces of Ireland against the north. But the warriors of Ulster were not ready. Because of an ancient curse, the men of the province lay sick with the pains of childbirth, unable to lift a spear or mount a chariot. Only Cú Chulainn, immune to the magic because of his divine father, stood at the border. He was 17 years old, a lone hound, guarding the gate against 30,000. To prepare for this destiny, he had crossed the sea to Alba to seek the training of Scáthach, the warrior queen. Scáthach was the shadowy one, a master of combat who lived in a fortress guarded by a bridge that bucked like a wild horse. Cú Chulainn tried and failed 3 times to cross the bridge, the jeers of the other pupils ringing in his ears. It was then that the fury took him. With his famous salmon leap, he landed in the center of the fort. He demanded the knowledge of the gods at the point of a sword, forcing Scáthach to grant him 3 wishes: mastery of her arts, a marriage dowry, and the prophecy of his future. For a year and a day, he mastered the feats that made men into legends: the hero's coil on the spikes of spears and the apple feet. He trained alongside Ferdia MacDamán, who became his heart companion. But Scáthach taught only Cú Chulainn the secret of the Gáe Bulg. Carved from the bone of a sea monster, it was a spear that blossomed into 30 barbs once it entered the flesh. Back at the border of Ulster, Cú Chulainn waged a guerrilla war from the shadows, picking off champions until he forced Medb to the right of single combat at the fords. For months, he stood in the freezing water, defeating every champion sent against him. His only companion was Laig, the king of charioteers, who managed the horses with a grace that confounded all speech, navigating a chariot of wicker and iron-shod oak. The Morrígan, the goddess of war, came to him in the form of a beautiful woman and offered her love. When he spurned her, she promised him his downfall. She attacked him as an eel to trip him, as a wolf to stampede the cattle, and as a heifer at the head of the herd. He wounded her in every form, but the weight of the war was crushing his spirit until his father, Lug, came to him. Lug put Cú Chulainn into a magical sleep for 3 days, using the healing arts of the Tuatha Dé Danann to close his wounds. While he slept, the youth corps of Ulster, the boys he had played with in Emain Macha, rushed to his aid and was slaughtered to a man by the Connacht host. When Cú Chulainn woke and saw the carnage of the innocents, the last of his humanity evaporated. The boy died, and the monster was born. The air began to scream before he did. The first warp-spasm seized him, making him into a monstrous thing, hideous and shapeless. His shanks and his joints shook like a tree in a flood. His body made a furious twist inside his skin. His feet and shins and knees switched to the rear, while his heels and calves switched to the front. The sinews of his calves bunched into knots the size of a fist. On his head, the temple sinews stretched to the nape of his neck, forming knobs as big as the head of a month-old child. His face and features became a red bowl. He sucked one eye so deep into his head that a wild crane couldn't probe it out. The other eye fell out along his cheek, his mouth distorted, the cheek peeling back until the gullet appeared, and his lungs and liver flapped in his throat. His hair twisted like the tangle of a red thorn bush. If a royal apple tree were shaken above him, each apple would be spiked on a bristle of his hair. From the center of his skull, a straight spout of black blood rose as high as the mast of a great ship. He was the distorted one, the Riastada, a creature who recognized neither friend nor foe, avenging the youth corps sixfold as his chariot wheels churned the earth. Queen Medb, desperate, sent for Ferdia, his heart companion. She bribed him with wine and threatened him with the satire of the bards. For 3 days, they fought in the ford. By day, they hacked at each other until the river was cast out of its course. By night, they exchanged food and healing herbs across the fire. They kissed 3 times at every parting, for they were brothers of the shadowy one. On the 3rd day, Ferdia's iron skin turned aside Cú Chulainn's sword. In desperation, Cú Chulainn called for the Gáe Bulg. He caught the spear between his toes and thrust it into Ferdia's body, the 30 barbs spreading through every joint. Ferdia died in his arms. Cú Chulainn carried the body across the ford so that his friend would rest on the soil of Ulster, lamenting that yesterday he was larger than a mountain, today there is nothing but a shadow. The war ended in a hollow victory, and the weight of his deeds pulled Cú Chulainn into the earth. The children of the wizard Calatin lured him into breaking his sacred prohibitions. He was forbidden from eating dog meat, yet he accepted a feast of roast dog from 3 one-eyed hags. The strength drained out of his body. Pierced by his own spears, he refused to die lying down, crawling to a nearby loch to wash his wounds. He bound himself to a pillar stone with his girdle so that he would die standing, facing his enemies to the last. For 3 days, the armies feared to approach him, for the hero light still shone above his brow. It was only when a raven, the Morrígan herself, perched on his shoulder that they knew the hound was silent. History remembers him for his rage, but that day he learned, glory is a fire that leaves only ash behind. Like this tale of ancient iron and blood? Subscribe to Saga Weaver. Every week, we unearth the legends that forged our world and witness the impossible choices of the warriors of old. Join the host, subscribe now.